So this evening we're just going to talk a little bit about healthy eating and eating disorders in children and teenagers. And it's myself and Jess, and we both work, if you don't know, we both work for the CAMHS service. We're both nurses in the team. Okay. Yeah. So what is healthy eating?
What is healthy eating? That's the first thing that we were going to have a look at. The Food Standards Agency, I don't know if anyone's seen this plate before, but it's something that the NHS use in terms of kind of giving people a bit of an idea as to kind of what they need to be eating, what the diet needs to be sort of made up of, really. So a bit of everything, really. So fruit and vegetables and sort of carbs take up a large amount, and then you've got meat and fish, so your proteins, food and drinks that are high in sugar and fat, kind of the smaller section, and then milk and dairy over there. So that kind of gives a bit of an idea as to what diets need to be
what you should be having.
made up of. Yeah. And I guess no one is perfect in no one's going to stick exactly to it, but it's good just to have a bit of an idea as to what we're kind of aiming for.
And I think the really important thing to remember is that everybody's individual as well. So if you've got any concerns, it may be important to visit either a GP or dietitian. But I think there's a lot of things kind of out there at the minute, kind of fad diets, lots of things about different seeds that seem to be in, the sort of flax seeds, the chia seeds, and and I think sometimes it's just about thinking about actually have those got the benefits that they sort of say they do, and actually thinking about the Eat Well plate, because that's what the NHS standards are using in England. So it might be much more about actually just sticking to that balanced diet rather than kind of using these kind of new kind of, like I say, seeds that seem to be kind of all the rage at the minute. The NHS are still sticking to those original guidelines rather than sort of any sort of new fads.
And we usually talk about everything in sort of moderation, don't we,
Yeah,
really?
absolutely. Yeah.
In terms of not going extreme in any way, really.
Yeah.
We're just having that balanced diet. Variety.
Okay. So we just thought we'd look briefly at the sort of different types of eating disorders, and there's sort of three main categories. So you've probably all heard of these: anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, and it's now known as avoidant restrictive food intake disorder. And each of these actually have subcategories. There's lots and lots of categories within these, but these are the kind of three main ones that probably you've probably heard about most, actually.
So we thought it'd be really important to have a think about sort of warning signs in terms of the eating disorders, the three that Claire's just talked about, and have a little think about sort of the things to look out for, really, in terms of if you might be worried about a young person or your child or someone you know. So, and I think there's probably no house that doesn't have some kind of diet book or, they're pretty common these days. But I guess it's just about how much time is being spent on things like diet books and, how many are being bought, how many are being followed, all that kind of thing. So another one is sort of social media. So using sort of pro-anorexia websites or any other websites that might promote some kind of eating disorder.
There's lots of it's strange as it might sound, there's lots of tips out there as to how to do it well, sort of how to be a good anorexic or a good bulimic.
And this is one that often parents sort of talk about, that they've sort of noticed that young people might be using and get a little bit worried about it, which is understandable. So dieting behaviour. Often people talk of becoming a vegetarian or a vegan or have extreme kind of changes in what they might be sort of eating or from what they usually would eat. So sort of big changes. An increase in fussy eating. And that's specifically around kind of avoiding, might be high fat foods or, someone might used to have loved chocolate and all of a sudden they're absolutely avoiding it, will not touch it. Or sort of avoiding the dairy, things that are high in fat. So that can be.
Carbohydrates seem to be something that a lot
carbs.
of, especially, the young people we see always sort of try to cut out carbohydrates.
Yeah.
which, as we just said at the beginning, is one of the most important food groups in terms of balanced diet.
Yeah. So sort of an increase in bathroom visits after eating. Skipping meals. So people might go to school and sort of instead of eating their lunch, they might throw it away instead, or sort of hiding things, hiding things at meals rather than eating it.
Maybe sometimes tricky to notice that as well, so it might be,
Yeah.
you might notice some of the other things, and it might be that's one of the latter things to sort of pick up on as
Yeah.
well, because sometimes it's hard to kind of know if, particularly obviously throwing away lunch if you've got a child or, a young person at school. It might be actually through friends or teachers. I mean, you hear these things from, they're probably less likely to sort of tell you they've been throwing it away.
And the hiding of food and skipping meals, that's around kind of that desire to lose weight or that kind of thing. And that's often driven by those thoughts. Rather than just sort of not having time to eat your lunch, that kind of thing. And then this one's more around the sort of bulimia, so food going missing. Sometimes people notice that, they'll be stocking up the cupboards with crisps and biscuits and things, and as fast as they're stocking it up, that might be disappearing. And sort of having a bit of a think about that. So an increase in sort of unusual number of stomach flu episodes. Kind of thing. Want to go? Do you?
Okay. Do you mind still flicking? Or do you want
I can still flick.
Okay. So things to sort of think, those are the kind of warning signs. So I guess this is now thinking about, well, actually, if you are noticing those, and then you start sort of seeing some of these other patterns, when it is you kind of really want to kind of alert services or get somebody else involved. So if you notice that they're sort of fasting and skipping meals regularly, if that's something that you've picked up on. Really common as well is a kind of dislike, sort of a sudden sort of dislike eating with other people. So whether that be family or friends, they suddenly feel really self-conscious about it, don't want to do it, try to avoid it. So those are things that you might notice. If females obviously might notice sort of changes in their menstrual cycle as well, whether they'll be reporting it or whether something it's just you're picking up on, often comes as well. Again, sort of binge eating, so that's again when you're kind of noticing those sort of packets of biscuits, crisps and everything disappearing. So, and it's generally kind of something that's quite out of control. So you might again notice them kind of disappearing and find lots of packets of crisps just lying around in their room, or when you go to tidy up, or because it'll be something that again that'd be quite hidden, so it's something you might need to be quite vigilant for.
And I guess that would be something that's maybe happening a little more often.
Yeah.
We know young people often finish school and go home and they're really hungry and they just, want to eat those biscuits, but it's when it's kind of unstoppable and they just can't control it and sort of keep going.
Purging episodes, so any kind of vomiting or anything like that you notice. Again, use of diet pills or laxatives. So that might be, all these things are obviously, you'd have to be, looking for the warning signs first of all, and then you maybe be kind of keeping a bit more of an eye out to sort of figure out if these are the things that are being used. Excessive exercise and weight loss. So you suddenly notice that you're a young person that is out running every evening, and again it often comes with that control as well. So there's often a control element where they can't really control it, they're kind of knackered and exhausted, but they kind of keep pushing themselves to the extreme. So you kind of notice that as well. Again, that focus on diet foods and kind of calorie counting as well, or kind of portion control. So maybe leaving bits on the plate that you wouldn't normally see. They normally maybe scraping the plate and finishing, but now you're kind of noticing that there's bits being left, and that's a kind of regular occurrence. And changes in mood, really common with any kind of eating disorder as well. You might have had this sort of happy, easygoing young person, and all of a sudden they're kind of more angry, more dismissive, more distressed, might be more upset around different things. So kind of noticing those mood changes as well. Yep.
And sometimes not just kind of the portion control, but sometimes even just control in terms of if you go shopping, people might be trying to tell you, what you should buy and what you shouldn't buy, and that you should avoid this brand of butter because it's higher fat than another brand of butter, that kind of thing. So sort of really obsession about that control and the calories.
So I guess what's really, really important about the kind of eating disorders in particular is that there's no other mental health condition that affects the physical health of a young person, or any, we're obviously focusing on young people, but of any individual in quite the same way. And attending to their physical health is really, really important if you want to have any change, although I guess at the same time having that understanding of the psychological impact as well, because it does come under mental health, although it has those physical health repercussions. So it has, you know, in order to kind of understand your child and make any changes, it's really important that you have some understanding of the psychology around it, and that might be seeking advice and help from others as well to kind of help you to grasp that.
So this is just a diagram, just to give a bit of an indication as to kind of how bulimia actually affects someone's body. So I mean, there's loads of different things from it affecting your blood. So you might be sort of quite iron deficient. Your heart, so regular heartbeat. Your muscle will be weaker because you're not feeding it enough. People might be dehydrated. In terms of sort of lower down intestines, so often people suffer with constipation and being quite irregular. They might feel bloated or have diarrhoea. So in terms of the brain, again, as Claire said before, sort of mood changes. People's cheeks can sort of swell.
Something that's maybe a bit more evident, so there might be something you actually might notice more on them, because some of the other things you maybe struggle to see.
You wouldn't notice a lot of these things. So lots of kind of physical effects on someone's body from bulimia.
And this is just a similar diagram, but then looking at kind of anorexia, and much more about the cognitive, so the thinking style of anorexia as well. A lot of change in terms of their ways of thinking and how they see themselves as well becomes really different. You also notice a thinning of hair on their head, and you might actually notice kind of like thin hairs a lot at parts of their body they maybe wouldn't usually have it. You know, their arms, downy hairs. Again, you notice sort of, if they were sort of seen by the GP, they'd maybe notice changes in sort of blood pressure, heart rate, those kind of things. They might also kind of have body fluid changes as well, which you'd maybe notice through sort of getting blood tests. And as we said before, changes in kind of menstrual cycle, whereas it might stop actually in extreme cases, and kind of thinner skin and all those little bits.
And
quite an impact.
The sort of menstrual cycle and that kind of thing stopping is around the body, so prioritising really where the energy needs to go. So it's more important to pump the heart, that kind of thing, than be able to reproduce, which is why that.
So where do you go for help? So often young people who have a suspected eating disorder really don't want help. I think that's one of the most important things to recognise, is that they generally don't see there being a problem. So as I said before, it's having that understanding that might be their response to it, but also kind of holding your boundaries as well with them, because it could cause them a lot of stress in seeking help. And I guess it's just sort of reinforcing that you're there for them.
And that's not necessarily them being kind of naughty or anything like that. It's just around that eating disorder having quite a weight on their thoughts and kind of guiding them as to what to do. The psychological side of things. The psychological impact.
And so if you notice any of the sort of signs as we've said, the earlier and the sooner you can sort of seek help, the better, because as time goes on, actually these things become more ingrained and much more difficult to treat.
So where to go for help? There's not that many places in Guernsey, unfortunately. But sort of the obvious ones, so the GP is a really good person to go to, so they should do sort of regular blood tests, so check out kind of how your physical health is,
height and weight and stuff.
Height and weight, all that kind of thing, and can then refer on to us. The school nurse can also offer support and guidance and can also refer to us. And access from each of these referrals to CAMHS.
So it might be that, either of these stages with the GP or the school nurse, that, the intervention they have might be enough to stop them having to ever come to CAMHS, because they've got a lot of information on these things as well. So it could be just getting the right person and getting your young person to these services at the right time can stop them ever, having to come to a CAM service, but at the same time they can monitor as well, and if it needs to come, then that's the right people to come to it.
Yeah, just finally really, we've got a list here in terms of further information and where we think are good places to go. So there's the BEAT website, which is a specific eating disorder website, which is really useful.
It's good for young people as well, actually, for them to access and get some information for themselves.
There's some support groups within that as well, which can be quite useful. And then just a couple of books. So Help Your Teenager Beat an Eating Disorder,
That's
by
really good.
James Locke, which is a really good one, which we often recommend to parents. And then there's a Janet Treasure book, so Anorexia Nervosa, a survival guide for families, friends and sufferers. And both of those are pretty good books.
Yeah. The last one there kind of gives some good parenting advice as well, which is good. Okay. So, any questions?